Nightcat Classic Tales is the part of the show where I relive some horrible traumas in my life and I tell them to you for your amusement because that's how much I love and appreciate you. I'm willing to relive these traumas. Now, on episode 2, was it 2? I'm pretty sure it was 2. I'll figure it out and I'll post the link down in the description of this video. But in a previous episode, I told you about the worst date I ever went on, where, long story short, he told me we were gonna get dinner and go to a concert and that he could get us in. He handed me a sandwich covered in tinfoil in a parking lot and said, "Here's your dinner." And then we had to usher for our tickets. That's the long and short. You should really go watch that whole video. It's hilarious. But that's not what we're here for, because tonight I'm gonna tell you the story of my second worst date ever. Now, this one's a little bit spicier, so here's a content warning for the little children. If you've got night kittens listening, maybe send them out of the room for a second. It's not horrid, but, you know, you never know how kids are gonna pick up on things. So this happened, God, how old was I? I think it was 18. Oh, I was exactly 18. I was fresh out of high school, and I was feeling like, yeah, I'm an adult now. I'm gonna try online dating for the first time ever. So I made a profile on a now defunct gay dating site called Connections, with an X. Connections. And I just thought it was less skanky than like the other ones that I had seen, but it turns out it was equally, if not more skanky than the other ones that I had seen. Well, I meet this guy. We'll call him Colin. Why not? Colin. So Colin says on his profile that he is 23, so he's a little bit older than me, but that's like whatever. And he doesn't do drugs or smoke or anything like that. He's just a real square, you know. And I was a real square in high school too. I was the one that didn't get invited. I got invited to the fun part of the birthday party where we all ate cake and like the parents were around. But then usually after I left, everyone busted out the booze and stuff because I was such a square. So I was like, oh good, he's a square, he seems nice, let's meet up for dinner. So we meet up at the Gateway Mall. And he goes, "You want to go get dinner?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'd love to go to Red Lobster." I go, "Okay." He goes, "But you have to drive because I took the train." My ex was driving in the car with me. He was in the passenger seat when I broke up with him. And he pulled my emergency brake and said, if I can't have you, no one can. So we spun out and now my car's totaled. I'm like, what? Now, in retrospect, I'm sure it was just a DUI situation because it turns out he wasn't as much of a square as I was, because he drank heavily throughout our entire dinner at the Red Lobster. We get in the car and we're driving. This is just from the Gateway Mall to the Red Lobster and Sugar House. It's not a long drive, but in that amount of time, I find out that he's like, "Wait, are you really 18? I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I'm really 28. Is that gonna be a problem?" And I was like, no. But like, I was still a scared little baby. That was a grown man in my car all of a sudden, 28 years old. How old are you? And like, also, the problem with having a teenage mother is that a 10-year age difference doesn't always seem like the biggest deal. But when you're closer in age to my mother than you are to me, it gets weird. Sorry about it. I also find out that he didn't come out until he was 24, but before then he had 3 kids with 3 different women, all of whom he has full custody of because his ex-wives are drug addicts, abusive, and he says, here's the worst part, I'm so sorry, I hate to have to say this out loud, I hate it too. He goes, "I got custody of my youngest son because my ex-wife, I found her pulling all of the skin off of his yoo-hoo." And I was like, "Oh my God, what? What?" And he goes, "Oh, don't worry, it's fine. I've spent over $100,000 in reconstructive surgery, and now it's the size of a Red Bull can." Size of a Red Bull can! Ah! So despite my best efforts, I go into the restaurant with this psychopath. And he walks right up to the hostess, and he throws his arms down on the host table, and he goes, "Do you have any hot gay waiters working tonight?" Who says that? Who says that? So the hostess is like, "I'll go check." And they didn't have any hot gay waiters. They had one really nice middle-aged waiter named Javier from the exotic land of Mexico. And he was lovely. he was just the loveliest. And the problem is that Colin here suddenly was in a bad mood because he didn't have a hot gay waiter. And he's just like, I'd like a glass of wine, and I'd like a water with lemon, and I'd like a whole plate of lemons. Don't forget my lemons. He says, he better not forget my lemons, because lemons determine the tip, and I'm sure he needs all the money he can get to send back to his family in Mexico. I'm like, you monster! You monster! So at this point, I am just really trying to just keep my mouth shut, keep my head down, and just deal with this. He gets up to go to the bathroom, and I realize that there's a whole family next to us of very conservative individuals. And it's just us and this table of like 18 people. And when he gets up to go to the bathroom, I look over there, and they've all been staring at us, and they're whispering, gay, gay, that's a gay day, gays. And I'm just like, listen, he's making me homophobic too. It's fine, I don't want to be here. We finish dinner. And the check comes, and he does that thing where he looks at me like, are you gonna pay? And I just completely ignore it. And then he says, don't worry, you can get the next one. I'm like, the next one, the next one, you're out of your mind. So I drive him to his apartment. He starts smoking in my car. Rolls it down, he's been drinking all night, he's smoking a cigarette in my car. I'm just like, get this clown out of my face. I get him to his house, he's like, walk me to my door. So I walk him up to the door, and he goes in for a goodnight kiss, and I intercept with one of those, I'm never calling you again, handshakes. I'm like, there you go. He goes, call me tomorrow. You can come over and hang out with me and the kids. We'll watch movies on this Lovesac. I'm like, I'm not hanging out at your crappy apartment with your kids that I don't know on your horrible Lovesac, you monster. And then I blocked him, and I never heard from him ever again. But that really scarred me because that was like my first grown-up date. I went to the city and everything for it. And ever since then, it's just been a series of really unfortunate events, many of which I'm sure I will share with you here on Nightcap with Nightcat. But for now, that is Nightcat Classic Tales.